Chapter 1. The Steppe of My Childhood. I was born beneath a sky so wide it seemed to have no end, a ceiling of blue that curved over the endless grass of the steppe. My first memories are not of walls or roofs, but of the wind moving through the tall grass, the sound of horses snorting nearby, and the warmth of a mother's arms beneath a felt tent. In those early years, my world was small, yet it felt vast, because the land stretched further than my eyes could see. The steppe was my cradle, my playground, and my first teacher. When I was a child, I woke each day to the sound of hooves. Horses were everywhere, tied near the yurts, galloping in the distance, their breath steaming in the cold dawn. I learned their voices before I learned words. Each neigh, each stump of a hoof, each shake of a manner meant something different, and my ears grew trained to them. To us, horses were not just animals, they were our brothers, our legs, our wings. I was taught early that without them, a man was less than half a man. Our family lived in a yurt, a round felt tent that could be taken apart and rebuilt whenever the herds needed new grazing land. The air inside was always thick with the smell of milk tea boiling, leather drying, and the smoke from the central fire curling upward through the smoke hole. My father sat close to the fire in the mornings, sharpening his knives, preparing tack, and teaching us boys how to braid ropes. My mother's hands were never still. She churned milk into butter, stitched warm clothes from hides, and sang songs that seemed to stretch out like the horizon itself. I remember how the mornings began. The air would be cold, sharp enough to sting the skin, but the fire gave comfort. We children rose before the sun climbed fully, our small boots crunching frost on the ground. Our tasks were simple, but even the smallest task mattered. We fetched water from the stream, gathered dry dung to feed the fire, and herded the animals closer when they wandered too far. These were chores, but they were also lessons. Each act taught me that the land gave life, but only if you paid respect with work. I learned to ride almost as soon as I learned to walk. At first, my legs were too short to grip the sides of the horse, so I clung to its manner, my father steadying me with one hand. But soon, balance became instinct. The horse and I learned each other, and before long, I was guiding it with a tug of the reins, a squeeze of my knees, or even just a lean of my body. On horseback, I felt taller, freer, like the wind had accepted me as one of its own. Childhood on the steppe was not gentle. The winters were long and cruel, the kind where the sky turned grey for weeks and the snow piled higher than a horse's knee. In those times, food grew scarce, and families grew thin. I remember the hollow ache in my stomach when the milk soured too quickly, or when meat had to be stretched thin across too many mouths. Hunger was a companion I knew well, and though it was harsh, it forged strength. It taught me that survival meant endurance. Yet, there was joy, too. We wrestled in the grass, testing our strength against one another, laughing when we fell. Wrestling was more than play. It was training for the life ahead. Every grip, every push, every fall was a small rehearsal for the battles we would face as men. In the evenings, we sat by the fire while elders told stories of great cairns, of ancestors who rode with the wolves and conquered lands far beyond the horizon. My young heart swelled at those tales. I imagined myself one day standing tall, my horse beneath me, my banner whipping in the wind. I remember the smell of mare's milk, sharp, sour, but rich with life. We drank it daily, and it gave us strength. I remember the creak of leather saddles, the sound of bows being strung, the weight of a small wooden practice bow in my hands. At first, the arrows flew clumsy and crooked, but each day I trained, until my aim grew true. To be a man of the steppe was to be rider and archer both, swift as the eagle, sharp as its talons. The steppe was harsh, but it was also beautiful. In spring, the grass grew thick and green, stretching endlessly under the blue sky. Herds of sheep, goats, and horses grazed peacefully, and the air was alive with birdsong. In summer, the rivers ran full, and we bathed in the cool water, letting the current carry us for a while before climbing out to dry in the sun. Autumn brought golden grass that rippled like an ocean, and winter brought silence, the kind of silence that pressed into your bones, broken only by the howl of wolves across the frozen plain. From those wolves, I learned another lesson. They circled the herds, watching, waiting. We hunted them, and they hunted us. They taught me about vigilance, about strength, about never turning your back on the wild. I remember one night, hearing their howls close by. My father stood at the door of our yurt with his bow ready, eyes sharp as he scanned the darkness. That image stayed with me, a man who never slept deeply, who guarded his family with every breath. One day, I knew I would need to be like him. But childhood was not only about survival, it was also about dreams. Sometimes, lying on my back in the grass, I watched the clouds drift and imagined they were armies on the march. Other times, I listened to the elders speak of the eternal blue sky, the great spirit that watched over us all, and I felt a stirring inside me, a sense that my life was tied not only to my family, not only to my clan, but to something vast and unending, as endless as the sky itself. I was not yet a king then. I was only a boy of the steppe, running barefoot through the grass, my hair wild in the wind, my bow clutched awkwardly in my hands. But the steppe was already shaping me. It carved into me lessons of endurance, of strength, of respect for the land, and of loyalty to my people. Each dawn, each task, each struggle was a stone laid on the path that would one day lead me to rule. For now, I was only a child. But the steppe never let children remain children for long. Chapter 2: Youth, Training, and Bonds with Brothers. I was no longer a child, though I still carried the rawness of childhood in my bones. The years of early play and fumbling steps were behind me, and before me stretched the long road of youth, a road filled with trials, lessons, and the slow, steady forging of strength. On the steppe, youth was not a time of leisure. It was a time of sharpening, of testing, of being prepared for the weight of adulthood that would come sooner than one might expect. Each morning, I rose earlier than I had as a child. The sun had not yet lifted its golden rim above the horizon when I stepped outside the yurt. The air at dawn was sharp, carrying with it the bite of cold even in summer, and each breath filled my chest with the wild scent of grass wet with dew. My horse waited for me, its body steaming faintly in the chill, its ears twitching as I approached. By now, I no longer needed my father's steadying hand to mount. With practiced ease, I swung onto its back, gripping with my legs, and rode into the pale light of morning. Riding had become second nature. The horse and I were bound together, my movements guiding it, its instincts guiding me. Sometimes I thought we shared the same breath. My father taught me to ride not only for speed, but also for endurance. We would gallop hard across the plain, and then, instead of letting the horse rest, I had to learn how to slow it, how to pace it, how to preserve its strength for a journey that might last days. A man who burns his horse's strength too soon, and my father told me, he is a man who will walk home alone. Those words sank deep into me, as so many of his lessons did. I trained my body with equal care. Wrestling became a daily test between me and my brothers, our limbs tangling, our laughter mixing with the grunts of effort as we tried to throw one another to the ground. The grass beneath us became worn and pressed flat from so many matches, a living reminder of our struggles. Wrestling was more than play, it was the art of the body, the test of strength and cleverness, and every boy was expected to master it. I learned to feel the weight of my opponent, to sense the shift in balance before it happened, and to use my own body as a lever to topple them. Each victory filled me with pride. Each defeat taught me humility. Archery, too, consumed my days. My father placed a bow in my hands that was nearly as tall as I was. At first, my arms trembled with the strain of drawing it, the string biting into my fingers, the arrow wobbling wildly before it even left the bow. But slowly, through repetition and persistence, my muscles grew stronger. My aim grew steadier. I learned to ride a full gallop, guiding the horse with my knees while drawing, narking, and loosing an arrow in one fluid motion. The first time I struck a target while riding, my heart leapt within me, and my father nodded with a quiet pride he rarely showed. But youth was not only about training the body. It was also about learning the weight of loyalty and the bonds of brotherhood. I was not alone on the steppe. I had brothers, some born of my mother, others of my father's other wives, for our family was wide and sprawling. Among them, I found allies and rivals alike. Together, we herded the animals, shared our meals, and trained side by side. Yet, as close as we were, we also competed fiercely. Each of us wanted to prove ourselves, to show strength, to win our father's approval. There were nights when we sat around the fire, the stars wheeling overhead, and shared our dreams in low voices. One brother spoke of becoming a great warrior, leading raids that would make enemies tremble at his name. Another longed to be known for wisdom, to counsel leaders and guide the tribe with words rather than weapons. As for me, my dreams were harder to name. I felt within me a pull larger than I could yet understand, a whisper that told me my path would not be small, that the horizon was only the beginning. But for now, I kept that whisper to myself, letting it grow quietly inside me. The elders of the tribe also played their part in shaping my youth. They called us together often, teaching us not only through words but through example. They showed us how to read the sky, to know the weather by the way the clouds moved, or by the sudden hush of birds. They taught us to track animals, to read the faintest bent of grass or broken twig. They reminded us that the eternal blue sky watched over all things, and that to live well was to live in balance, not only with people, but with the land, the herds, and the spirits that moved unseen through the steppe. I remember clearly one summer night, when my father gathered us outside the yurt and pointed to the stars. He traced the lines of constellations with his finger, naming them, telling us how the ancestors had ridden among them. "Look there," he said, pointing to a bright cluster. "That is where warriors go when they fall in battle. They ride forever across the sky, their banners never lowered." I lay awake long after, watching those stars, imagining myself one day among them, my horse galloping across the heavens. But youth was not all training and lessons. There was laughter, mischief, and the bonds of family that gave warmth even in the coldest winter. We raced our horses across the plains, daring one another to ride faster, to leap higher, to take risks that made our mothers scold us afterward. We crept into the herds at night, daring one another to touch the flank of the fiercest stallion without being kicked. We stole extra morsels of dried meat from pots and shared them, giggling, behind the shelter of the yurts. These moments made life sweet, binding us together in ways that training alone could not. Yet even as boys, we knew the shadow of responsibility was never far. Raids from rival clans, disputes over grazing land, and the harsh hand of nature reminded us constantly that life on the steppe was fragile. I saw men return from battle with wounds that scarred them forever. I heard the wails of women when herds were stolen or kin were slain. I felt the hunger of lean winters, when even the marrow of bones was scraped clean to fill the belly. These things etched themselves into me, shaping me as surely as any bow or horse. And so, my youth was a mixture of hardship and joy, of laughter and discipline. It was a time of forging, of body, of skill, of loyalty. Each dawn brought new lessons. Each dusk brought the satisfaction of survival. And slowly, beneath the endless sky, I felt myself becoming more than a child. I was not yet a man, not yet a leader, but the steppe was shaping me, preparing me for the path ahead. For ahead lay trials I could not yet imagine, trials that would test not only my strength but my spirit, and that would one day place upon my shoulders the weight of kingship. But for now, I was a youth of the steppe, learning to ride, to fight, to endure, and above all, to be loyal to those who rode beside me. Chapter 3: The First Taste of War. The years of youth had hardened me. The long mornings of training, the endless riding, the bruises from wrestling, the calluses from drawing the bow, all of it had prepared me for what lay ahead, though I did not yet know it. Childhood games had become drills, laughter had turned into discipline, and the steppe had begun to whisper its harsher truths to me. It was only a matter of time before the world demanded more than training, more than play. It would demand blood. War was not some distant tale told by elders. It was a constant shadow across our land, always near, always pressing. Rival clans watched us as we watched them. Every pasture we rode across had been claimed by someone before. Every herd of horses grazing in the distance was both wealth and temptation. On the steppe, survival meant defending what was yours, and sometimes taking what was not. I remember the morning it began for me. The air was cold, sharper than usual, the grass crackling beneath our horses' hooves as the frost broke under their weight. My father called us together before the sun had risen, his voice low but steady. "Today," he said, "you ride with us as men." His eyes swept across me and my brothers, and for the first time, I felt their weight not as a father's gaze but as a commander's. There was no gentleness in it, only expectation. The camp moved with quiet purpose. Warriors prepared their mounts, tightening saddles, checking quivers, testing the edges of their curved sabers. The women brought food and filled water skins, their faces calm but solemn. Children huddled near the yurts, watching with wide eyes, knowing what this meant. War was not a celebration. It was necessity, and necessity carried a silence heavier than any feast or festival. My heart pounded as I readied my horse. My bow was strung, my arrows tied to my side, the leather of my quiver stiff with the cold. My hands trembled slightly, not with fear alone, but with the weight of stepping into something irreversible. Once I rode out with them, I would not return the same. We set off in silence, the hooves of dozens of horses beating a rhythm across the plain. The sky lightened slowly, a pale wash of pink and gold spreading above the horizon, but the dawn seemed distant, as though it belonged to another world. Around me, my brothers rode tall, their faces set with determination. Some were eager, their eyes shining with the chance to prove themselves. Others were grim, knowing already what war cost. I tried to steady myself somewhere between the two. The enemy was not far. Scouts had spotted their herd grazing near the river, their yurts clustered like dark spots against the earth. They were a smaller clan, but they had horses strong and swift, and their pastures overlapped with ours. For weeks, tensions had built, raids and counter-raids, insults traded, threats shouted across the plains. Today, it would be decided not with words, but with arrows. As we drew near, my father raised his hand, and we slowed to a halt. The horses stamped, tossing their heads, as though they too felt the tension in the air. My father turned to us, his sons among the warriors, and spoke. "Remember," he said, "you ride not for yourselves, but for your people. Do not waste your strength. Do not let fear rule you. Strike hard, ride fast, and never turn your back." His voice was steady, like the earth beneath us, and I held onto those words as tightly as I held my reins. The signal was given. We spread out, a wide crescent of riders, and then with a shout, we surged forward. The thunder of hooves filled the air, the ground shaking beneath us. I leaned low over my horse, the wind tearing at my face, my bow already in my hand. The first arrows flew before I was close enough to see their faces. Dark shapes arced through the sky, some falling short, others striking with deadly force. I saw a man topple from his saddle ahead of me, his cry lost in the roar of hooves. My own hands moved without thought. Draw, knock, release. The bowstring snapped against my fingers, the arrow vanishing into the chaos. I did not know if it struck, but there was no time to wonder. We crashed into them like a storm. Horses screamed, men shouted, steel clashed against steel. The air was thick with dust, with sweat, with the sharp scent of blood. I loosed arrow after arrow, my arms moving in rhythm with my horse's gallop. When my quiver was half empty, I drew my saber, its curved blade flashing in the pale light. The first time my blade met another's, the shock of it rang through my arm. The man's eyes were wide, his teeth bared, and for a heartbeat, we were locked together, strength against strength. Then my horse surged forward, pulling me past him, and I twisted, swinging again. This time, the blade struck true. I do not know if he fell. The battle moved too quickly, but the feel of the strike stayed with me. It was heavy, final. All around me, the clash raged. My brothers fought nearby, their voices shouting above the din. One of them, younger than me by a year, nearly fell, his horse stumbling, but I rode to his side, loosing an arrow at the man chasing him. The arrow struck, and the pursuer fell back. My brother looked at me only for an instant before plunging back into the fight. There was no time for thanks, no time for anything but survival. And then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. The enemy broke, their line shattering, their riders fleeing across the plain. We pursued them only a short distance before my father raised his arm, calling us back. The victory was ours. Their herds were scattered, their camp abandoned, their strength broken. But victory did not feel as I had imagined. I sat on my horse, breathing hard, my arm heavy with the weight of the saber, my quiver nearly empty. Around me lay the fallen, men I had never known, men whose lives had ended beneath the same sky I had grown up under. Some were ours. Some were theirs. The steppe made little distinction. We gathered the spoils, horses, weapons, food. We tended the wounded, bound their injuries, and laid the dead aside to be mourned. My father walked among us, his face unreadable. He did not praise us, nor did he weep. War was not for pride. It was survival, nothing more. That night, as the fire crackled and the meat of captured animals roasted over the flames, I sat in silence. My brothers laughed, boasting of their kills, replaying the moments of battle with wild gestures and excited voices. But I could not join them. I felt the weight of the saber still in my hand, the tremor of the bowstring against my fingers, the memory of faces blurred in the chaos. Sleep came slowly, and when it did, it brought no peace. I dreamed of hooves pounding, of arrows hissing through the air, of men falling with cries that echoed long after they were gone. War had marked me now. I was no longer only a youth of the steppe. I had taken my first life, ridden in my first battle, and tasted both victory and its bitter edge. The steppe had demanded blood, and I had given it. And deep within, though I could not yet name it, I felt the beginning of a truth, that this would not be the last battle, nor the last burden. The path ahead would be paved with war, with hardship, and with choices that would weigh heavier than any sword. But for now, I sat beneath the eternal blue sky, a warrior among warriors, the firelight flickering across my face, and I knew my life as a Mongolian king had truly begun. Chapter 4. Rise of the Clans and Forging Alliances. You wake to the sound of hooves outside your yurt. At first, it blends with the dream you are leaving behind, that endless dream of galloping over a steppe with no horizon, where the grasses shimmer like water and the sky is too vast to name. But slowly, the sound sharpens into reality. The earth trembles faintly with the movement of horses, and outside, voices call in low tones, steady, purposeful. It is dawn, the pale light seeping in through the felt seams of your yurt. You rise slowly, the air cool and thin, your breath visible in the dimness. Around you, the yurt is quiet, the bedding neat, the hearth glowing faintly with embers from the night fire. You dress carefully, layering wool and fur, fastening your belt, hanging your dagger at your side. As you push open the felt door flap, the chill of morning meets you, sharp and clean, carrying the smell of horse and grass. Before you, the camp is alive with movement. Riders gather near the edge of the encampment, their horses snorting steam into the cold air, saddles creaking as they shift. Women tend the fires, their hands busy with kettles and wooden bowls, while children peer from behind them, watching the riders prepare. Above it all, the sky spreads endlessly, pale blue at the horizon, deepening into the eternal vault that has always watched over your people. This is no ordinary morning. The riders who have come to your camp bear banners not your own, narrow strips of cloth tied to lances, their colours and patterns marking them as kin yet separate, neighbours and rivals alike. They are guests, yes, but also something more. They are here for torque, for decision, for alliance. You mount your horse, feeling the familiar weight of the saddle beneath you, the rhythm of its breath steadying your own. With a few chosen men, you ride out to meet the newcomers. They are already waiting, their leader a broad-shouldered man with eyes dark as storm clouds. His horse is powerful, its maner braided, its tack adorned with silver. Around him, his men sit straight-backed, silent, their faces carved with the same calm as the plain itself. You greet them as custom demands. You do not smile, for smiles are for children and feasts, not for mornings such as this. Instead, you incline your head slightly, your words measured and formal. The eternal blue sky has brought you safely here, you say. The man nods in return. And may it carry you safely home, he replies. Back at camp, the guests dismount, their horses led to water and grazing by young herders. They enter your yurt with the dignity of men who know their worth. Inside, the fire has been rekindled, the floor covered with felt rugs, bowls of fermented mare's milk set before them. You take your place opposite the visiting leader, your father beside you, your brothers ranged knee-by. The air is heavy, not with smoke or with scent, but with what hangs unspoken between you. The talk begins slowly, as it always does. First, there are questions of the road, of the weather, of the herds. The visitors speak of wolves troubling their flocks, of rivers running low in summer, of good grazing found near the foothills. You listen, you nod, you answer politely, though your mind knows this is but the outer shell of the talk. Beneath it lies the true matter, the one that brought them here. At last, it emerges. Raids have grown more frequent from a rival clan to the east. Horses have been taken, scouts harassed, women insulted. Alone, neither your people nor theirs can stand against this threat for long. But together, strength might be enough. The words come carefully, each weighed like gold on a scale. Promises are offered, but never too quickly. Demands are made, but softened with flattery. The eternal blue sky is invoked, the ancestors remembered, the bonds of the past recited like verses. All the while, you sit steady, watching the faces, listening to the tones, feeling the currents beneath the words. This is not just talk. It is battle, fought with silence and patience instead of steel. At last, your father speaks, his voice calm but firm. An alliance, he says, is more than words. It must be bound by blood, by flesh, by the lives of our children. And with that, the path is clear. A marriage will be made. Your eldest sister will be given to the clan of the visitors. In exchange, one of their daughters will be welcomed into your household. It is the way of the steppe, harsh to some, but unbreakable. Marriage ties clans together, for through the womb of a woman flows the blood of generations. Where there are shared children, there is shared fate. You think of your sister, quiet and strong, her eyes deep as still water. She will leave the yurt she has always known, the pastures of her childhood, the faces of her kin. She will ride away beneath another banner, her children belonging to another clan. Yet she does not protest, for she knows as you do, this is the way survival is woven. The marriage is celebrated in due time. Horses are exchanged, gifts given, feasts held. The yurts are filled with song and the air heavy with the sweet, sharp scent of fermented mare's milk. Warriors wrestle before the crowd, their muscles straining, their bodies slamming into the earth, each throw a display of strength and skill. Archers compete, loosing arrows at distant targets, their bows singing as the crowd roars. At night, fires blaze, and voices rise in songs of ancestors long gone, their names carried into the sky with the smoke. Yet beneath the feasting, you feel the thread of something deeper weaving itself. A bond, fragile but real, binding your clan to theirs. It is not trust, not yet. Trust is a rare treasure on the steppe. But it is necessity, and necessity is strong. More alliances follow. Some through marriage, others through battle fought side by side. You ride with warriors of distant clans, chasing raiders across the plains, your horses thundering together as one. You share meat with them by the fire, drink from the same bowls, speak of hunts and battles, of women and of ancestors. Slowly, carefully, threads are woven into rope, rope into net, net into something stronger than any one man or clan could hold alone. But it is fragile, always fragile. A careless word, a broken promise, a stolen horse, these can unravel everything in a breath. You see it happen. Two men, once allies, fall to blows over a grazing pasture. Their clans clash, blood is spilled, and what was woven with patience is torn apart in a single night. The steppe remembers all debts, and forgiveness is a rare guest. Through it all, you learn. You watch your father, how he speaks less than others, how he listens more. You see how silence can be as sharp as a blade, how patience can wear down resistance where force cannot. You learn that a true leader binds not only with strength, but with cunning, with generosity when needed, with ruthlessness when required. And you learn to carry yourself differently. No longer just a son of your clan, you are now a figure others watch. The sons of other leaders measure you with their eyes, testing your strength in wrestling matches, in archery contests, in the long races across the plains. You meet them blow for blow, shot for shot, stride for stride. Sometimes you win, sometimes you fall, but always you rise again, your name whispered a little more widely each time. One gathering lingers in your memory more than the others. A great Kurultai, called beneath the eternal blue sky. Dozens of clans came, their yurts spreading across the land like stars scattered on the earth. Horses beyond counting grazed the plain, their manes tossing in the wind, their tails swishing like waves on a sea of grass. The air was alive with the sound of voices, with laughter, with the clash of games and contests, with the cries of children running among the yurts. It was there, among the gathered clans, that you felt destiny stir within you. You stood among the sons of other leaders, young men like yourself, their eyes sharp with ambition, their bodies strong, their laughter edged with rivalry. Together you wrestled in the firelight, your feet stamping the earth, your hands gripping, your muscles straining. Each victory, each fall, was more than a game. It was a message, a mark, a seed planted in the memory of all who watched. That night, as the fires burned low and the songs faded into silence, you lay awake beneath the unblinking stars. The sky stretched endlessly above you, vast and eternal, as it always had. But something in your heart shifted. You saw the clans scattered across the plain like stars in the sky, separate, shining, beautiful, but alone. And in that vision, you felt the possibility of something greater, of stars drawn into constellations, of clans bound into one. You whispered a vow into the darkness, so soft no one else could hear. A vow that one day, the clans would ride not beneath 100 banners, but beneath one. And when that day came, it would be your banner they followed. And so, beneath the eternal blue sky, your path began to turn. Chapter 5. The Burden of Command. The mornings are no longer your own. When the first streaks of sunlight stretch across the endless steppe, the rays do not simply fall on grass and horse. They fall on your shoulders, reminding you that you carry more than a bow, more than a sword. You carry the weight of lives, men, women, children, and entire clans that look to you for direction. In your youth, waking was easy. The cold wind was a friend, the neigh of horses a signal of freedom. Back then, you could leap on your mount, chase the horizon, and feel the rush of blood in your veins with no thought of tomorrow. But now, every sunrise comes tied to duty. The felt walls of your GR breathe faintly in the dawn air. Embers glow in the hearth, not yet extinguished from the night. You rise slowly, draping a heavy deal over your shoulders, its fur trim brushing against your neck like the soft hand of a ghost, the ghost of freedom. As you tie your sash, your ears pick up the murmurs of the camp, warriors sharpening blades, children laughing, women tending fires. All of them carry on, confident because you are there to guide them. You step outside. The air cuts like a knife, sharp and clean. Your breath turns to white mist. Above, the sky spreads wide and endless, painted in pale gold. The banners of your clan stir gently in the morning wind, the embroidered patterns rippling like restless spirits. Already your council waits. A circle of figures, cloaked in heavy furs, eyes trained on you. Some are family, some are allies bound by oath, some are men who once rode against you and now bend the knee. They stand in silence until you walk to the center and lower yourself onto the wooden platform. Not a throne, not gilded, but raised just enough to remind all of them that your word is higher than theirs. One by one, voices rise. Two herding families fight over grazing lands, both claiming the same strip of steppe. Another complains that the spoils of the last raid were not divided fairly. A younger warrior accuses an elder of withholding tribute. Each voice carries sharpness, urgency, expectation. Each man believes his truth deserves to be honored. You listen. Your face does not change. You weigh each word as if you hold stones in your hand, testing their weight, judging their worth. And then, when the noise swells, you raise your hand. Silence spreads like frost. You deliver your ruling slowly, each word measured. You decree that the land be shared according to the size of the herds, that the spoils be divided according to Valor shown, that the tribute be collected by season's end. The men bow their heads. Some are satisfied. Others burn with quiet resentment. You see it in their eyes, though they hide it with lowered gazes. This is command, not the thrill of arrows loosed, not the rush of hooves across open fields. It is patience, it is fairness, it is knowing that every decision binds or breaks trust. But before the circle can disperse, the generals speak. They bring darker news. Scouts have returned from the river valleys. A rival clan moves closer, grazing where they should not, drinking from waters that belong to you. Some urge swift reprisal, a raid to remind them of their place. Others call for caution. Too much blood has been spilled in the past season, and winter draws near. You sit in silence, your fingers pressing against the carved wood of your seat. Their voices rise and fall like waves crashing against cliffs. You do not interrupt. You let them exhaust themselves, let them reveal their eagerness, their hesitation, their ambition. And then, when the moment feels right, you speak. Your voice is steady, not raised, yet it cuts through the air. You declare that envoys will be sent first, bearing gifts but also words of warning. The rival clan will be given the chance to bow, to offer tribute. But preparations for war must not cease. Horses must be fed double, arrows fletched, scouts sent farther. Some of your generals nod with approval. Others scowl faintly, hiding their disappointment. No one dares challenge you openly. They bow, fists pressed to their chests, and the matter is closed. Yet inside, you feel the burden settle deeper. For you know what they cannot admit. Every choice risks unraveling the fragile weave of loyalty. Push too hard for war, and the clans will bleed each other into weakness. Hold too tightly to peace, and you will seem soft, ripe for betrayal. It is a balance that no sword can cut and no bow can strike. It is a battle fought not on the grasslands, but inside the silence of your own thoughts. Later, when the council disperses, you walk among the herds. The sun has risen higher now, casting long shadows of grazing horses across the ground. Their heads lift as you pass, ears flicking, nostrils flaring. You lay a hand on the neck of your stallion, black-coated, eyes fierce and watchful. The beast shivers under your touch, muscles taut with energy. The horse asks no questions. The horse does not weigh politics or loyalty. The horse knows only the bond of rider and steed. In its simplicity, you find comfort. The day stretches long. You oversee the inspection of weapons, the counting of arrows bundled in leather quivers, the condition of saddles, the sharpening of blades. You hear grievances from mothers who lost sons in raids, from warriors who feel their valor overlooked, from envoys bringing tidings of distant allies. Each time, you nod, you answer, you console, you command. The sun falls. Shadows lengthen. The fires of the camp begin to glow, their smoke curling into the evening sky. Laughter echoes faintly in the distance, mingled with the songs of warriors who drink fermented mare's milk to warm their bellies. But inside your GR, silence holds you. You sit before the fire, staring at its restless flames. The warmth touches your skin, but it does not melt the weight you carry. You think of the men who will follow you into battle, shouting your name. You think of the families who depend on your judgment to survive the winter. You think of the rivals who watch for any sign of weakness. And above all, you think of the solitude of power. For though your camp is full, though voices surround you by day and night, though men would die at your command, you alone carry the burden. Tomorrow will bring more disputes, more demands, more decisions. The burden will never ease. But tonight, in this fragile stillness, you allow yourself to breathe. The fire crackles. Outside, the wind sings across the open steppe. And you sit, the cairn, with the weight of an empire resting upon your shoulders. Chapter 6: Palace Life and the Rituals of Kingship. The steppe has always been your home. For most of your life, the endless horizon was your palace, the earth your floor, the sky your roof. Yet now, as cairn, you live within walls. They are not walls of stone, for the steppe resists such permanence, but walls of felt, leather, and wood. Your palace is not one building but a collection of hooves, arranged in careful order, standing like islands in a sea of grass. When you step outside your GER in the morning, you do not step into wilderness alone. You step into a carefully arranged world of order and ritual. To your left rise the banners of your lineage, embroidered with symbols of conquest and faith. To your right, lines of warriors stand guard, silent, their hands resting on hilts and spear shafts. Beyond them, servants move like ants, preparing food, tending fires, grooming horses, setting everything in motion for the day. You breathe in the cold morning air. Even here, in what men call your palace, the wind still carries the bite of the steppe. It stings your cheeks, but it also reminds you that you are alive, that you are still part of the land. The first ritual of the day is not of war, but of reverence. Shamans wait for you near the sacred fire. Their robes are decorated with beads, feathers, and bones, their faces marked with soot and ash. They bow their heads as you approach, and one of them raises a carved wooden bowl filled with mare's milk. The smoke of burning juniper rises, sharp and sweet, curling into the air. You lift the bowl slowly, tilting it toward the sky, offering a portion to eternal blue heaven. Then you tilt it toward the earth, letting drops fall into the soil. Only after heaven and earth have been honored do you drink. The milk is thick, sour, and alive with strength. It coats your tongue, warms your chest, and steadies your spirit. Around you, your people kneel. Some whisper prayers. Others simply watch, their faith resting not just in the sky above, but in you, the one chosen to rule beneath it. The ritual ends, and you walk back through the palace camp. Your guards follow at a distance, never too close, never too far. You hear the sounds of your world awakening, blacksmiths striking metal, cooks stirring pots, children laughing as they chase one another between jaws. It is a city, yet not a city of stone, a city that breathes, that can rise and vanish in a day if need be. Inside your audience GR, the throne waits. It is not a throne of marble or gold, but a seat carved of wood, raised higher than the others, draped with furs of wolf and snow leopard. When you sit upon it, you feel both the comfort of softness and the hardness of command pressing into your back. The air here is thick with incense and smoke, the light softened by felt walls. One by one, they come. Nobles from allied clans, bowing low. Generals bearing reports of troop strength. Messengers bringing tidings of far-off lands. Petitioners begging for justice or mercy. You hear them all. You cannot dismiss them, for your presence alone is their answer. Some mornings stretch for hours like this. You nod, you gesture, you ask questions, you give decrees. Your words settle disputes, forge alliances, seal fates. And while you do this, you feel the invisible weight pressing heavier on your shoulders. For every man who kneels before you carries behind him a family, a clan, 100 others whose lives shift because of your judgment. By midday, the rituals of kingship move from words to feasting. A long table is laid out with meat and bread, with bowls of steaming broth, with fermented mare's milk flowing like water. The hall fills with voices, laughter, songs, arguments, boasts. You sit at the head, your presence commanding but your voice quiet. You do not need to shout. The Khan's silence speaks louder than any warrior's roar. Yet even in feasting, ritual rules. The choicest cut of meat is always offered to you first. The first cup poured is always set before your hand. The songs are sung not merely for joy but for loyalty, verses woven with praise of your ancestors, your victories, your right to rule. Still, as you sit among them, you feel a distance. The songs are for you, but they are not truly about you. The smiles are wide, but they are measured. Even in laughter, Men remember you are Cairn. You are part of the feast, and yet apart from it. When the feasting ends, the day shifts again. Outside, the wide steppe waits, but inside the palace camp, the duties of command linger. You meet with your scribes, men who scratch lines into parchment, preserving decrees, marking tribute, keeping the endless tide of details that binds empire together. You meet with your generals in private, weighing strategies, arguing over borders, deciding which alliances to nurture and which to let wither. The rituals of kingship are not only prayers and feasts. They are also caution, patience, and constant vigilance. And when night comes, another ritual unfolds. A great fire is lit in the central courtyard. Shamans drum slowly, their voices rising in chants that seem to pierce the very stars. Warriors gather, circling the blaze, some standing in silence, others singing. You step forward last, casting a pinch of salt into the fire, a final offering to the eternal blue heaven before retreating to your private chamber. There, in the solitude of your GER, the silence returns. The flicker of firelight dances against the walls. You lie upon furs, hearing the faint murmur of the camp outside, laughter fading, footsteps quieting, the night wind sweeping across the steppe. And you feel it again, the truth that shadows every ritual. Though you are surrounded by thousands, though men kneel and women sing your name, though banners rise for you and fires are lit in your honor, in the stillness of night, you are alone. The rituals give shape to power. They remind the people of your greatness, but they also remind you of your solitude. And so you close your eyes, breathing slowly, letting the silence swallow you. Tomorrow, the rituals will begin again. Chapter 7. Seasons of War and Peace. The steppe was a land of rhythm, and as Cairn, your life was tethered to that rhythm in ways deeper than breath itself. The turning of the seasons was not merely a backdrop to your reign, but the very pulse that dictated every movement, every campaign, every feast, and every silence. You could feel it in the earth under your boots, in the air that clung to your skin, in the restless shifting of your people and herds. To rule here was to be ruled as well, by the endless cycle of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Spring always began with restlessness. The air softened, the crust of ice on rivers cracked, and the first blades of green pushed up from beneath the snow. Herds that had endured the hunger of winter poured eagerly at the thawing ground. Horses whinnied with new energy, stamping their hooves as though impatient for movement. You, too, felt that same fire. In the Cairn's great camp, the sound of hammers rang out as saddles were repaired, cart wheels were strengthened, and arrowheads sharpened. Spring was not a gentle season of flowers and idle peace. It was a drumbeat, a signal to rise. The warriors knew it. The women knew it. Even the children, chasing each other between the felt jaws, sensed the hum of preparation. As Cairn, spring meant decision. Which borders would you test this year? Which rivals would need reminding of your strength? Which allies required gifts, and which would tremble before your riders until they bent the knee? You sat with your generals beneath the open sky, maps laid before you, tokens marking the positions of rivers, mountains, and enemy tribes. You studied the reports of scouts, weighed the grain supplies, measured the readiness of horses. Each choice would ripple across the year like a stone dropped in a pond. For your people, spring meant preparation. For you, it meant strategy, the mind of the Cairn awakening with the earth itself. Then came summer, fierce and unrelenting. The grass rose tall, and the horses grew fat, able to gallop for days without tiring. The steppe became a sea of green, and over it surged the thunder of hooves. Summer was the season of movement, of campaigns that stretched across plains and deserts alike. You remembered nights when the sky overhead was a field of endless stars, and the fires of your warriors dotted the land like constellations come to earth. The air was thick with the smell of horse sweat, roasted meat, and the sharp tang of fermented mare's milk. In summer, your banners travelled far. Some years, they reached the edges of kingdoms where stone walls rose like jagged teeth, and foreign kings sent envoys bearing tribute rather than face your wrath. Other years, they swept across rival clans, punishing betrayal with fire and sword. For you, summer was not just about conquest. It was about presence. The knowledge that when your riders appeared on the horizon, entire villages would fall silent, merchants would offer their wares freely, and distant rulers would whisper your name with both fear and respect. Autumn followed, carrying with it a deep, reflective stillness. The grass turned gold and brittle, the air grew sharp, and the days shortened. Herds gorged themselves on the last of the rich pastures, preparing for the lean months ahead. Your people returned to the heartland, their carts laden with goods, their horses heavy with the spoils of summer. This was the season of gatherings. Tribes came together, oaths were renewed, disputes settled. Around great fires, songs were sung, and storytellers recited the deeds of ancestors. For you, autumn was council. You sat surrounded by your generals, your advisors, your family. Victories were celebrated, losses weighed. Some years the talk was triumphant, the mood filled with pride. Other years, the tone was somber, shadows lingering over the fires as tales of defeat or hardship were shared. Autumn reminded you that power was not endless. A cairn could be mighty in summer, but if his people returned weary, if his herds faltered, if his alliances wavered, then winter would be merciless. Autumn was a season of humility, of reckoning. And then winter came. The endless, merciless winter of the steppe. Snow bared the grass, the winds screamed across the plains, and even the strongest horses grew thin. The world turned white and silent, broken only by the howl of wolves and the groan of ice. For your people, winter was survival. Fires burned inside felt jazz, meals were rationed, and every night the wind tested the strength of canvas and rope. Children huddled beneath firs, listening to elders tell stories of past cairns who had endured harsher winters than this. Warriors spent their days repairing weapons, mending clothes, and tending to horses with what little feed could be spared. For you, winter was vision. You could not ride out to conquer, but you could sit in the glow of firelight, maps spread across the floor, your advisors gathered close. You traced the lines of rivers and mountains with your finger, imagining the paths you would take when the thaw came. You listened to the wisdom of elders, weighed the words of rivals, considered the hunger of your people. Winter was not stillness, it was planning. Victory in spring and summer was born in the long silence of winter nights. And so, year after year, the cycle turned. Spring, readiness. Summer, conquest. Autumn, reflection. Winter, endurance. You learned to live within this rhythm, not as its master, but as its servant. The steppe shaped you, as it had shaped every cairn before you. It was in this rhythm that you discovered the true meaning of kingship. To rule was not only to fight. It was to endure, to guide, to know when to unleash fury and when to hold back. The seasons became part of your very body. The warmth of spring filled you with restlessness. The blaze of summer gave you strength. The cool winds of autumn sobered you, reminding you that all victories were temporary. And winter humbled you, reminding you that even the greatest cairn could not command the sky or the snow. Yet within that cycle lay legacy. Each spring, you thought of your father, who had once stood where you stood, feeling the same restlessness as the earth awoke. Each summer, you thought of your ancestors who had ridden across these same plains, their banners snapping in the wind. Each autumn, you remembered the counsels of the past, the songs of warriors long gone. And each winter, as the wind howled outside your GER, you dreamed of how your descendants would one day sit where you sat, planning, waiting, enduring. This was life as a Mongolian king, not a single moment of glory, but the endless rhythm of the seasons. To live it was to become part of the land itself, as eternal and unyielding as the steppe. Chapter 8. The Web of Alliances. Power on the steppe was never held by the sword alone. A sharp blade could win you battles, but it could not feed a herd in winter, nor could it bind a rival tribe to your cores once the snow melted. To rule as Cairn was to understand that power was not only made of iron and horseflesh, it was also woven from the delicate threads of alliance, loyalty, marriage, and trust. This was the web you walked, fragile yet strong, invisible yet shaping every part of your reign. From the day you rose as Cairn, alliances became as much a weapon as your bow. Some were forged in the fire of shared battle, when warriors of another clan rode beside your own, and the blood spilled on the grass mingled into brotherhood. Others were secured through gifts, horses, jewels, bolts of fine silk carried by merchants from faraway lands. And still others were bound through marriage, when daughters of proud families were given as brides, tying two clans into a single destiny. But alliances were not simple. Each one came with its own weight, its own cost. To accept the loyalty of one tribe might mean drawing the suspicion of another. To marry into one family was to slight the ambitions of another family just as eager to share your throne. You had to balance it all, weaving carefully, knot by knot, so the web held firm rather than snapping beneath its own weight. Spring was often the season of new alliances. As the earth awoke, so too did the ambitions of men. Envers rode into your camp bearing gifts, their words wrapped in courtesy but sharpened with intent. Some sought protection, others sought favor, and a few sought only to measure your strength. You sat before them as Cairn, listening carefully, your expression calm. For on the steppe, words mattered as much as swords. A promise made lightly could haunt you for years. A promise kept too quickly could make you appear weak. Summer was the testing ground. An ally's worth was not proven in the softness of a council tent, but in the fire of a campaign. Those who had sworn loyalty to you rode at your side, their banners flying beside yours. You watched them in battle, how quickly they obeyed orders, how bravely they fought, how tightly they held their lines. Some alliances deepened in these months, sealed by courage. Others began to fray, cracks showing where men faltered, or where ambition whispered louder than loyalty. Autumn was the season of diplomacy. After the rides of summer, leaders gathered, sitting across fires from one another, voices raised in argument and laughter alike. Meat roasted, cups of fermented milk were passed, and under the weight of stars, deals were struck. You knew these nights well, the slow rhythm of negotiation, the long silences where both sides measured each other, the bursts of laughter that sealed a fragile trust. Some of these councils stretched long into the night, until dawn broke over a sky streaked red, and the fate of whole tribes had been decided with a few words spoken in the fire's glow. Winter tested not only your people but also your alliances. A weak Cairn could not hold allies through the silence and hunger of those months. Rival envoys whispered in the shadows, carrying promises of better fortunes if loyalty shifted. Families who had given their daughters as brides might grow restless, wondering if their sacrifice had brought enough reward. Winter was the season when betrayal brewed like a hidden fire beneath the snow. As Cairn, you had to be watchful, listening to every rumor, weighing every word. And yet, alliances were more than survival. They were the architecture of empire. With each new bond, your reach grew. With each oath sworn, your power stretched farther across the horizon. Sometimes, these bonds reached beyond the steppe itself, into lands of farmers, merchants, and kings who lived behind stone walls. Their gifts flowed into your camp, bolts of silk from China, silver cups from Persia, spices from distant India. And with each gift, each marriage, each oath, the world became smaller, pulled into the orbit of your will. But you knew, always, that the web could unravel. A careless slight, a broken promise, a defeat in battle, any of these could send threads snapping, one after another, until the whole structure trembled. That was the weight you carried. Each alliance was both strength and burden, each promise both a shield and a chain. In quiet moments, when the camp was still and the only sound was the soft snort of horses in the dark, you thought of it often. You pictured the web in your mind, stretching across the steppe, shimmering in the firelight. Every knot was a tribe, a family, a promise. Every thread was loyalty, thin, fragile, yet capable of holding the weight of nations if woven carefully. And you were at its center, the cairn who kept it from collapsing, the one who felt each tremor when a thread pulled too tight. This was not glory in the way battles were glory. It was quieter, more patient, more dangerous. It demanded not only strength but also wisdom. To be cairn was not merely to lead warriors into battle. It was to sit across from rivals and turn them into brothers. It was to hear the whispers of betrayal and answer them not with fury, but with patience. It was to understand that the empire you built was not only made of earth and stone, but also of trust and fear, of loyalty and ambition. And so, as the years passed, the web grew. Some threads snapped and were rewoven, some knots loosened and were tied again. But always, you remained at its heart, guiding, balancing, enduring. That was the life of a Mongolian king, not only the roar of hooves and the clash of steel, but also the quiet, endless weaving of alliances that held everything together. Chapter 9. The Weight of Legacy. You rise before the dawn once again, not out of urgency, but out of the rhythm your life has shaped after years of ruling. The felt walls of your GR are still dark, the embers in the fire pit glowing faintly, but your eyes are awake, staring at the ceiling as you listen to the slow breaths of the night guards outside. The weight of years presses differently now. You have fought battles, united tribes, tasted victory, and endured loss, but with time, something heavier grows within you, the question of how you will be remembered. For a Mongolian king, this is no small thought. It is the thought that lingers even when the drums are silent and the horses rest. It is the whisper that follows you when no voices are near. Your legacy. The word itself seems to carry the chill of the dawn wind. The old shamans always spoke of it, as if a man's life was not just the years he lived, but the shadow he left on the earth long after his bones had turned to dust. And as cairn, your shadow is long. Each lore you commanded, each rider you sent, each enemy you crushed or spared, all of it stretches behind you, and all of it will one day stand in judgment of your name. You step outside into the pale blue of early morning. The grass is cold and wet with dew beneath your boots. The horizon is a thin line of gold, promising the coming sun. Around the camp, your soldiers still sleep, their horses tethered close, some grazing quietly, some stamping at the earth. The world is peaceful now, but you know peace is never the final chapter in a king's life. You stand tall, the fur cloak wrapped around your shoulders, and breathe in the cold air deeply. The sky above is endless, as it always has been, but somehow it feels more watchful these days. As if the heavens themselves are waiting for you to decide how your story will end. In your youth, legacy meant conquest. It meant being sung in the songs of the steppe, your victories recited by riders at firesides. It meant that your enemies trembled at the sound of your name, and that the tribes who once resisted now bent their knees willingly. To be remembered was to be feared, to be praised, to be seen as untouchable. But now, you understand that memory is more complicated. Fear fades. Praise shifts. Men who once called you a savior may one day curse your name when your rules burden them. Enemies who hated you may one day respect you more than your descendants will. Legacy is not a blade you can forge with certainty. It is a river, flowing beyond your control, shaped by voices you may never hear. You walk slowly toward the sacred hill outside the camp. The guards bow their heads but do not follow. They know this is a path you take alone. At the top of the hill, you kneel, feeling the earth cool and damp beneath your hands. From here, the land stretches endlessly, the grasslands shimmering in the soft morning light. This is your kingdom. This is your breath and your blood. And yet, it will outlast you. You close your eyes, and memories rise like smoke from fire of your mind. The faces of warriors lost, the cries of women and children saved, the gleam of foreign envoys who once bowed in or at your court. You see the day you were first proclaimed Cairn, the day the tribes raised you on a white felt rug, and you swore to lead them as long as the spirits allowed. You see battles, swift and brutal, and you see feasts, where laughter filled the night and the stars above seemed to lean close to listen. Each of these moments is part of your legacy. Each of them will be remembered in some way. But will they remember you as the Cairn who brought unity, or as the Cairn who sowed divisions for the future? Will they see your hand as just, or as cruel? Will they honor your laws, or break them as soon as you are gone? The thought stirs unease in your chest. You know the burden of succession is near. Your sons grow restless, ambitious. They argue when they think you do not hear. Some of them hunger for power, others for glory, and some simply for your approval, which you cannot give to all equally. The steppe has never been kind to weak hands, and you fear that after you, the unity you carved will splinter once again. What, then, will your legacy be? Will people say you built a kingdom, or merely held together a fragile bond that shattered after your death? You sit in silence for a long while, watching the sun lift higher into the sky. Its warmth touches your face, and you feel the years more clearly, not as weakness, but as wisdom earned through fire and storm. Perhaps legacy is not meant to be controlled. Perhaps it is only meant to be lived rightly, with honor, with strength, with balance. You rise, slowly, brushing the earth from your hands. The camp below is stirring now, riders leading their horses, fires being rekindled, cooks preparing food. The sound of life is strong, and it reminds you that legacy is also in the present, in the way your people live under your rule, in the security they feel, in the hopes they carry for tomorrow. You walk back, greeted by bows and murmured titles of respect. You sit upon your seat in the GER, and soon your advisors arrive. They bring disputes to be settled, plans to be made, alliances to be considered. Each judgment you make today will ripple outward. Each word you speak may outlive you. And so you weigh them carefully, feeling the unseen eyes of the future upon you. The day stretches long. You hear quarrels over grazing lands, settle trade agreements with merchants from far-off cities, listen to shamans speak of omens, and grant honors to warriors who proved themselves in recent campaigns. At times, you feel the weariness of age, but you push it aside. This is what it means to be Cairn, to give your life not to your own desires, but to the endless needs of the people. In the evening, you dine with your sons. The air is tense, as always. Each one tries to impress you, to show his worthiness. Some boast of their victories, others speak of loyalty and wisdom. You listen, but your heart is heavy. You know not all of them will survive the struggle that will follow your death. Mongol blood runs hot, and ambition is a fire not easily quenched. Still, you look at them and see not just rivals, but children who once rode ponies across the steppe, laughing in the wind. Legacy is cruel in this way. It demands not only of kings, but of their heirs. Later that night, Alone again, you step outside. The stars blaze above, bright and countless. The steppe is quiet except for the distant rustle of horses. You stand there, your hands clasped behind your back, and whisper a prayer to the eternal blue sky. You ask not for more years, but for wisdom to guide what years remain. You ask that your people remember you not just for the battles you won, but for the peace you preserved, for the justice you tried to uphold, for the vision you carried in your heart. The wind answers in silence, but somehow you feel it carry your words upward. And as you return to your GER, you understand something with clarity. Legacy is not a crown of gold or a song carved into stone. Legacy is the way your people live tomorrow because of what you gave them today. It is the laughter of children in camps that no longer fear raids. It is the strength of warriors who ride knowing their cairn values them. It is the unity of tribes who once spilled blood against each other but now share bread under one banner. That will be your true weight. That will be your true legacy. Chapter 10. The Final Horizon. The years have gathered upon your shoulders like snow on the steppe in midwinter. Your hair, once dark as the raven's wing, has turned silver. Your body, once swift and unyielding, now carries the aches of countless rides and battles. Yet your spirit still burns, though the flame is softer now, steadier, like a lamp that has given light for many nights and knows the dawn will soon arrive to take its place. The days begin more slowly. Where once you woke before the camp stirred, leaping onto your horse as the sun broke across the grasslands, now you wake to the sounds of others moving first. The guards shuffle outside your GER. The horses snort and stamp, their hooves striking the soil. Children laugh as they chase one another between the tents. You rise carefully, each motion reminding you of the weight of age, and yet you still stand tall, because you are cairn, and the people must always see strength in you. Your reign has stretched across seasons, across lifetimes for many of your people. Entire generations have grown beneath your rule, children born under the peace you carved, elders who once doubted you now resting in their graves. You are no longer only a ruler of men, you are a symbol, a living banner of unity that has endured beyond the moment when most men would have been forgotten. But now, the horizon before you feels different. You sense its nearness in the way the wind brushes your face, in the way your heart grows heavy with reflection. Death does not come suddenly to a cairn who has lived long. It whispers across many moons, reminding him of the road ahead. You spend more time now listening than commanding. At council, you let your generals speak of raids and treaties. At feasts, you let the younger men boast of their hunts and victories. At night, you sit longer beneath the stars, silent, as if speaking less leaves more room for the spirits to answer. You have begun to measure your life not by what battles remain to be fought, but by what will remain after you no longer breathe. Your sons stand tall before you now, each of them hardened by years of riding and fighting. Some are fierce, their eyes sharp with ambition. Others are thoughtful, their words measured, as if they already feel the burden of rule upon them. You see in them fragments of yourself, your hunger for conquest, your loyalty to kin, your fire for justice. Yet you also see in them the dangers of rivalry. You know too well that blood does not guarantee peace. Brothers can be the bitterest of enemies. This thought troubles your sleep. In dreams, you see the tribes once more at war, the fragile unity shattered, your life's work broken like pottery cast upon the stones. You wake with sweat on your brow, your hand reaching for a sword that you no longer wear at your side. These dreams are warnings, not of what must be, but of what may be, unless you choose wisely in your final days. The shamans speak to you often now. They bring carved bones, painted talismans, bowls of milk and blood for offerings. They chant prayers to the eternal blue sky, asking that it guide your spirit when it is time to depart. Some tell you that your name will live for 1,000 years, carried by the wind across mountains and seas. Others warn that if your sons tear one another apart, your name will be cursed by those who suffer. You listen to all of them, though their voices blend together like reeds in the wind. One morning, as the sun rises pale and cold, you call your generals, advisors, and sons to gather. The air in the GR is heavy with smoke from the fire, the walls lined with weapons and banners that tell the story of your reign. You sit upon your seat, not as a warrior now, but as a father, as a man who knows his time grows short. You speak slowly, your voice deep, the words carrying the weight of your years. My sons, you say, ear and my people. The steppe is wide, the sky eternal, and no man rules forever. My life has been long, and the spirits have granted me more victories than I ever dreamed when I was a boy chasing horses on the plain. But all victories end. All rides come to their last horizon. Soon, mine will come. Your sons shift uneasily. Some look away, unwilling to hear. Others lean forward, eager for what you will declare. I tell you this, you continue. Do not let my death be the beginning of your quarrels. The land is strong because we are one. If you tear it apart, then the wolves will return. The tribes will scatter, and all that I have given will be lost. The silence that follows is deep. You look into each of their faces, seeing pride, fear, defiance, hope. You know some will obey, some will not. But you have said what must be said. The rest belongs to them. As the days shorten, you find yourself walking the camp more often, slower, leaning on a staff carved from a sturdy branch. You speak with the soldiers, with the women who cook, with the children who play at sword fighting in the dust. You let them see your face, so they will remember not only the Karn who gave orders from afar, but the Karn who walked among them, who knew their lives, who listened to their laughter. This too is legacy. At night, you sit outside your GR, watching the stars with your eldest grandson beside you. He is young, but already rides well, already asks questions of war and peace. You tell him stories, not of battles, but of the nights when you were his age, when you rode without knowing where the wind would take you, when you dreamed not of ruling, but of simply being free. His eyes shine in the firelight, and you wonder if he will one day carry your spirit forward in ways your sons may not. Winter arrives, harsh and unrelenting. The wind howls across the steppe, driving snow into drifts that bury the camps. Fires burn day and night, but the cold seeps into your bones more deeply than before. You grow weaker. Some days you cannot rise without aid. The shamans bring herbs, teas, rituals, but you know the truth. The eternal blue sky has begun to call. You spend your last strength in ritual. A great feast is held, the yurts filled with music and song. Warriors drink deep, their voices loud, but beneath the joy there is sorrow, for all know this is your farewell. You lift a cup, your hand trembling, and speak once more to your people. Do not mourn me when I'm gone, you tell them. Mourn only if you forget what we built together. My body will return to the earth, but my spirit will ride with the wind, with the horses, with the sky itself. Remember me not as a king above you, but as one who rode beside you. That night, you sleep long and deeply. Dreams come, not of war, not of sons fighting, but of endless plains beneath a sky so blue it dazzles the eyes. You ride once more, your horse young and strong, your body free of pain. The wind rushes past, carrying laughter, carrying songs, carrying all the voices of your people. You do not look back, for there is no need. The horizon stretches endlessly before you, and you ride into it without fear. When the morning comes, your breath has stilled. Your body lies wrapped in furs, your face calm, your hands folded upon your chest. Outside, The people gather in silence, the cold air heavy with grief. The shamans chant, the warriors bow, the children stare with wide eyes. You are gone. Yet you are not gone. The eternal blue sky has taken you, but your name rides onward, carried in song, in memory, in the very heartbeat of the steppe. Your legacy is not one thing, not one story, but 1,000 lives made different because you lived. And so the story closes. The cairn is gone, but the horizon remains. Endless, eternal.